The bell above the cafe door chimed with a soft jingle, a sound Amelia had heard thousands of times in the 5 years since she opened her little place on the corner of Maple Street. Usually, it signaled a regular coming in for their morning latte or a student ducking inside to escape the chill and sip on hot chocolate. But this morning felt different. The autumn air had been brisk, the kind that painted cheeks pink and turned breaths into misty clouds. The cafe was warm, filled with the comforting aroma of roasted coffee beans, cinnamon pastries, and vanilla syrup. Amelia stood behind the counter, wiping down the espresso machine with her usual methodical care. Running this cafe had become more than her job. It was her anchor, the steady rhythm of her life after everything had fallen apart. She thought the rush was over, most customers having already hurried off to work. The tables were half empty now, sunlight spilling through the large windows and catching flecks of dust in golden beams. She was humming faintly under her breath when the door opened. Footsteps, measured, confident, moved across the wooden floor. Something about them made her spine stiffen, her instincts warning her before her mind caught up. "Good morning," a deep voice said. Her world froze. That voice. Amelia's hand stilled on the espresso machine. Her heart hammered painfully in her chest, each beat echoing louder than the last. Slowly, she turned her head, and the past rushed at her like a freight train. He stood just a few feet away, tall and immaculately dressed in a tailored navy suit that looked out of place in her cozy, rustic cafe. Damian Blackwood, the man who had once promised her forever. The man who had shattered her heart without explanation. The man she had convinced herself she'd never see again. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. His face hadn't changed much, still sharp angles and a strong jaw, his storm gray eyes as piercing as ever. His hair was shorter, his expression harder, but he was still him. Still the man who had left her to raise a daughter alone. His eyes widened when recognition struck. "Amelia," his voice cracked ever so slightly, betraying an emotion he was trying to hide. Her throat tightened. She wanted to be strong, to put on the armor she'd forged through years of pain and independence. But seeing him now, it was like every carefully constructed wall trembled. "What are you doing here?" she managed, her voice low but edged with steel. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a sweet, high-pitched voice rang out. "Mommy." Amelia turned just as her daughter came running from the back room. Little Sophie's curly chestnut hair bounced with each step, her tiny hand clutching a piece of paper covered in colorful scribbles. She looked like sunshine wrapped in a dress, her smile wide and innocent. She skidded to a stop, blinking at the stranger by the counter. Her hazel eyes, so much like Damian's, widened with curiosity. Damian's gaze snapped to the girl, and his entire body went still. His lips parted, his breath catching as if someone had punched the air out of him. Sophie tilted her head, studying him. She had always been curious about new faces, but something about this one made her pause, as if she sensed a connection she couldn't yet name. "Mommy," she said again, pointing with her small finger, "who's that man?" Amelia's heart dropped to her stomach. Panic surged through her veins. She had dreaded this moment for years, told herself she could keep Sophie's world simple, safe. She had never lied. Not exactly. But she had carefully avoided conversations about fathers, about the man who should have been here but wasn't. Now, fate had dragged the truth into the light. Amelia opened her mouth, searching for words, but Sophie spoke first. Her little voice rang out clear and certain, with all the innocent honesty of a child. "Daddy." The word hung in the air, heavy and devastating. Damian flinched as if struck, his hand tightening on the back of a chair for support. His eyes darted between Amelia and Sophie, horror and awe colliding in his expression. Amelia's pulse roared in her ears. She wanted to deny it, to protect her daughter from the confusion that was about to unravel, but Sophie was already watching, her small brow furrowed in puzzlement. Damian's voice came, hoarse and broken. "Amelia, is she?" Amelia's lips trembled. She had imagined this moment countless times, but in her daydreams, she always had control. She always chose when and how to reveal the truth. Not like this, not in her cafe, in front of customers who were now pretending not to stare, with Sophie's innocent eyes wide and waiting. Her silence stretched, and that silence was answer enough. Damian's face crumpled, his eyes glassy. He took a half step forward before catching himself, as if afraid she'd vanish if he moved too quickly. Sophie, oblivious to the storm between her parents, skipped closer to him. She held out her drawing, a lopsided house with stick figures holding hands. "I made this," she said brightly. "Do you like it?" Damien's throat bobbed, his hand trembling as he reached for the paper but stopped short, his eyes flicking to Amelia in silent question. The cafe felt too small, too full of ghosts and unspoken words. Amelia's chest tightened, torn between shielding her daughter and confronting the man who had once broken her. All she knew was that her carefully built world had just shifted. And nothing would ever be the same again. The cafe's silence felt suffocating after Sophie disappeared into the back room, her little humming voice fading as she busied herself with crayons and paper. Amelia and Damien stood frozen, two storms colliding in a space too small for their shared history. Amelia wrapped her arms around herself, her nails digging into her sleeves as if they could hold her upright. She could still hear her daughter's innocent question echoing in her head, "Daddy?" The word had cracked something open that Amelia had spent years sealing shut. Damien broke the silence first, his voice hoarse. "Amelia, tell me the truth. She's mine, isn't she?" Her jaw tightened. She wanted to lie, to deny, to protect, but there was no denying the resemblance, the same eyes, the same dimple that appeared when Sophie smiled. She had seen Damien in her daughter every day since the moment she was born. "Yes," Amelia whispered, her throat thick. "She's yours." Damien staggered back as if the ground had shifted beneath him. His breath came ragged, his hand clutching the counter for balance. "My God!" His eyes shone with something raw, shock, grief, awe, regret. "I have a daughter." Amelia's fury flared, burning through her fear. "Don't you dare look at her like she's some miracle you stumbled on. You walked away, Damien. You left me, left us, without even giving me a chance to understand why." His head snapped up, guilt etched into his features. "I didn't know, Amelia. I swear I didn't. If I had." She cut him off with a sharp laugh, brittle as glass. "If you had what? Stayed, chosen differently. Do you have any idea what it was like for me? Pregnant, alone, everyone telling me I was a fool for ever believing in you. I built this cafe, I raised Sophie, I made a life from the ashes you left me in." Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. She didn't want him to see the pain still buried inside her. Damien's hands trembled as he reached toward her, then dropped uselessly at his sides. "I never stopped caring, Amelia. You think I wanted to leave? That I didn't fight it." His voice grew rough, desperate. "My family, they cornered me. They said if I stayed with you, they'd ruin your life. They would have taken everything, your reputation, your career. I thought walking away was the only way to keep you safe." The words hit her like a slap. For years, she had pictured him moving on easily, choosing wealth and duty over love. But now he was telling her it was all some twisted sacrifice. "You thought abandoning me was protection." Her voice shook with disbelief. "Do you know how cruel that was? You vanished, Damien. No explanation, no goodbye. I begged myself to hate you because the alternative was waiting forever." Damien flinched, his face pale. "I made the worst mistake of my life. And I've lived with it every day. I searched for you, Amelia. I tried, but you were gone, like you'd erased yourself from the world. And now," his voice broke as he glanced toward the back room, where faint giggles floated out. "Now I find out I've lost 5 years of my daughter's life. 5 years I'll never get back." The raw anguish in his tone nearly undid her. Amelia looked away, blinking back the tears that threatened to fall. She couldn't let him see how deeply he still had the power to wound her. "You don't just get to waltz back into our lives," she whispered. "You don't get to decide you want to play father now because it suits you." Damien stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "I don't want to play father. I want to be her father. To earn her trust, to be the man she deserves. I can't erase the past, Amelia, but I can choose differently now. Please, let me try." Amelia's heart ached. She thought of Sophie's questions late at night. "Why don't I have a daddy like the other kids at school?" and her own fumbling answers. She thought of the times Sophie drew pictures of families with 3 stick figures instead of 2. Her daughter deserved more than lies and empty spaces. But trusting Damien again felt like handing him a loaded weapon pointed at her heart. Her voice trembled. She doesn't know what it means to have a father. If you're serious about this, it has to be slow. On her terms, not yours. And if you hurt her, Damien, I won't. His words came out fierce, steady with conviction. I swear on everything I am, I will never hurt her. I will never walk away again. Amelia studied him, searching for the arrogance that had once defined him, for any sign this was just another promise waiting to be broken. But all she saw was a man stripped bare, his eyes wet with unshed tears, his hands trembling like someone terrified of losing what little he had left. A sound broke through the tense silence, Sophie's laughter, bubbling pure and unguarded. She came running back into the room, clutching her finished drawing. "Look, Mommy, look, mister," she said proudly, holding up the paper. It was a stick figure family again, 3 figures this time. A little girl between a taller woman and a man with messy hair. All 3 were holding hands under a crooked rainbow. Damien's breath caught. His voice was barely a whisper. "That's beautiful." Sophie beamed at him, oblivious to the tension. "You can sit with us if you want. Mommy makes the best hot chocolate." Amelia's chest tightened. Sophie's innocence was both a blessing and a danger. She had no idea of the storm swirling around her. Damien looked at Amelia, his expression a silent plea. "Please, let me in." Amelia's defenses wavered, her exhaustion catching up with her. For years, she had been strong for Sophie, carrying the weight of 2 parents. And here he was, the man who had broken her, offering to help shoulder that weight. She nodded once, barely perceptible, but it was enough. "1 hot chocolate," she said softly. "On the house." Damien's lips trembled, the barest ghost of a smile tugging at them. He pulled out a chair as Sophie climbed onto the one beside him, already chattering about her drawing. Amelia turned back to the counter, blinking away the tears that blurred her vision. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily. Trust would take time. But as she listened to Sophie's laughter and Damien's tentative responses, something shifted inside her. Maybe this wasn't the ending she had feared for so long. Maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of a new chapter neither of them had dared